to work. There we go. Perfect. All right, and we are officially live streaming. And before we continue, I'd love to introduce our executive director, whom you know by now, Ms. Sika Rose Green.
Good afternoon, everyone. I won't be so arrogant to think that everybody knows who I am. And there are some days I wish nobody knew who I was, but those days are few and far between. Good afternoon. I hope everyone is having a wonderful week and have had a great summer. And I say have had because the kids go back to school on August 8th, and I can't believe it, but here we are toward the end of the summer. Thank you for joining us so that you can get your final reports done and in, and we look forward to sharing all of this great information with not only the council, but the citizens of Leon County. I'm sure you've seen where with the information you have provided, we estimate that about 13,000 children, youth, and families will be assisted in some way, shape, form, or fashion, as my mom used to say, this summer. And that is a huge accomplishment considering we literally just got off the ground. I also know that there have been lots of comments out there and opinions and thoughts and summaries and verdicts on who was funded and whether that was in line with the mission of the council. I assure you, our council has had no issues with who was funded. The applications were all evaluated in a consistent way. And when I say that, I mean each evaluator was consistent with the way he, she, or them evaluated the applications. And we are very pleased to have funded these 30 programs and to have hit 7 out of 8 of our domain areas. So I don't know that we could have asked for any better than that in the short time period that we gave you to get these apps in and in the time period that the evaluators had to score them. So thank you, thank you, thank you for going the extra mile to get the apps in, working with Holly and Jacinta to get all of your documents and information in, and just hold tight because right around September or October, we'll have the final report on exactly how many people you all were able to help this summer. So thank you so much. And just appreciate all of you partnering with the CSC of Leon County. And so with that, I will turn it back over to Holly.
I'm actually going to ask you to do one more thing before we continue because we have a new team member.
I meant to do that before I hit mute. It is my absolute honor to introduce a new member of the CSC team, and that is Dina Snyder. Dina comes to us with almost 20 years of human services experience in budgeting and data management and operations. Most recently, she was with Children's Home Society of the Big Bend as the Director of Program Operations, and she has now come to us as our first Director of Finance and Operations. So welcome, Dina. I do want to give you just a few seconds to greet the participants if you would like to do that, and then you can turn it back over to Holly.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the kind words, Sika, and I am beyond excited to have joined our Children's Services Council team, and I truly do look forward to collaborating and working with each and every one of you as we continue to move forward. So thank you so much, and I'm excited to be here and to meet you all today. And now, Holly.
Awesome. Well, Thank you so much. Before we dive into the purpose of today's training, which is really going over just the final report guidelines, I do just want to remind everyone that your July report will be due on August 10th, and it will be following a very similar format that you followed previously. You will receive an email directly from me with your updated documents. We had about a 25% of our programs that requested budget reallocations, and so you should have received those by now, but just to make it nice and easy for everyone, you'll get a direct email from me with your updated family served worksheet as well as your budget tracking worksheet, just so you know that we're completely on the same page. As you submit your documentation to us, we then fold that into a larger one. So you'll receive that along with the direct link for the July portal. So just know that the June portal is closed down. So you will not be using the June portal to submit. You'll actually have another link. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Jacinta as we move forward in collecting your July report on August 10th. Now, what we're here to talk about today is our final report guidelines, but as we always do, we start with our theory of change. We start our program service committees this way, our strategic planning workshops this way, so that we're continuing to keep this vision of all children and youth that are socially, emotionally, and physically equipped to reach their full potential through these three priority areas that we've identified front and center. So everything that we do, we'll keep referring back to this. For those of you who are signed up to attend our open community forum later on this week, you'll see this again because this is absolutely where we want to start all conversations so that we keep our eye on the prize, so to speak, as we move forward. So, final reports. They are going to be, I am going to ask everyone to please mute until we get to questions and answers. If you have a question as we go, feel free to drop it in the chat, and then we'll come back at the end and go through those questions. If you have a pressing question as I'm going over something, you can use the raise hand feature down in your taskbar at the bottom of the screen. It might be under options or reactions, depending upon your setup or how you're joining us today. And that'll kind of flag us and let us know you have a question. So for your final reports, there are 2 final reports per your contract that will be due on or before September 15th. That is a Thursday, so it doesn't fall on the weekend. There's no need to extend it or anything like that. And that is your report of expenditures and your project closeout report. So we're going to go over that report of expenditures now, and then at the second half of our training today, we'll go over what's expected from your project closeout report. And keep in mind that your report of expenditures is this super detailed list of your accounting that was specified in each of your contracts. So what we've done here is gone through each of those line items for your budget, and what you'll turn in with your report of expenditures is going to be your completed budget worksheet for all 3 months. And what we're going to provide are just some samples of what evidence might be acceptable for covering each of these areas. I'm also going to pause at the end of each one, just in case one of my team members has something that they would like to add in terms of potential evidence measures that one can turn in. So I've kind of bucketed these in kind of broad brush strokes, but you'll see that each of these aligns with one of the line items on your budget. That first really big category is your human resources category. This is not for your administrative human resources that you might have captured in another lower item on your budget sheet, but for all of those that are actually providing services. Many of you are doing 1099s as opposed to including things like FICA, retirement, insurance, reemployment, all of that stuff, and that's perfectly fine. But one example of have an expenditure could be copies of those pay stubs as you expended money for anything related to salaries or any of the benefits package. For travel, this could be your daily travel, or if you put into your budget for conference to attend any conferences or training. Most of you said that you're going to be doing daily travel. So what we're going to be looking for is a mileage tracker. Now, we have not given you a sample mileage tracker, but if that is something you need, please send an email to either myself or Jacinta, and we can give you a sample of a mileage tracker. We will be accepting mileage at the federal rate. And I do believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Sika, that just went up as of July 1st. So for the month of June, we'll accept the previous reimbursement rate, but for July and August, we'll accept the new federal reimbursement rate for mileage. As long as there is a tracker that you have for the purpose of the travel, whatever it might be. Maybe it's transporting youth and students to a field trip. Maybe it is, that's what I saw mostly, was transporting youth to and from different things. Now, if you did need to do a rental car, if you just have the receipts for that, as well as your gas receipts. If you are attending training, registration fees, things like that, it's all covered in this kind of travel category. But please note, and I think I've addressed this with all of you before you received your final contract, that we will either do mileage or we will do like the rental car receipts and gas. We won't do mileage and gas. And so that was for several of you, you had that you budgeted for both items. And so we won't do that. We will do either a rental car receipt and gas, and that actually kind of shows why you needed that rental car, or just mileage. So I hope that that's fairly clear. All right. The next big kind of broad category, and there's a lot of bullets under here, I just called office expenses. Please know that's just what we've kind of called it, but each of these line items is included in your budget worksheet. Office supplies, telephone, utilities, insurance, postage, shipping, occupancy, printing and publications, advertising. This is all kind of we've just put in this big broad brush category, but you'll need to do each one line item. What we're looking for is proof of payment, receipts, rental agreements. That does include dates, your certificate of insurance payment stub or that payment certificate, utility bills with dates. For advertising, if you subcontracted that out to like run an ad, like do you have that contract and proof of payment? Or say it's like a Facebook ad that you wanted to run. Do you have that receipt from Facebook that shows very clearly the dates? I did put a little asterisk here that if you did some sort of social media advertising or any type of advertising, usually the results of your reach should be included in a report. So please think about including that in your project closeout report, which we'll talk about in just a few.
Holly, if I may add, so remember that the funding that you received was expanding a program. So when you are providing this information, you need to note what portion of that was being paid through the money that you received from the CSC. So if you decided, so let's say you had all of this and the expansion ended up being, I'm just throwing a number out there, it ended up being a fifth of, you equated that to how many you expanded, then you want to do that to be consistent with each of the receipts that you provide. So your receipt might be for more, but you do need to let us know what portion of that you are, quote, charging to the funding that you received from the CSC. If it was all for staffing, then you can note that it was all for staffing. We hired an additional staff person that did this, and any related expenses that go with that staff person or that team member. So as you start doing this, if you get confused or need help, please reach out to us. But it is very similar to your regular operational budget where you have several funding sources and you charge a portion of your operating expenses to each of those funding sources. This is no different. It would just be for the time period starting June 1 and ending August 30th.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Tika. I
Alex.
really appreciate that
Absolutely.
addition. Similarly, under equipment expenses, whether it's rental and maintenance, purchases, again, receipts, rental agreements that, that include those dates, that's the type of things that we're looking for. And for each expense, you will be required to show evidence of how you expended the funds. The next broad brush category that we put is kind of program materials. So this is books, educational materials, food and nutrition, or specific assistance to individuals. Again, receipts. Schedule of events is also one that I know is helpful for some people in terms of how they organize for food and nutrition, especially if they're purchasing lots of things we have 6 workshops that are coming up, and maybe you're buying in bulk, and you can kind of include that to justify why you might have a very large expense in June, but maybe not so much later in July. That's one thing that you can add in there. And for those of you who have specific assistance or cash assistance to individuals, if the total that you'll be contributing to one individual family is more than $600, they will need a 1099, and you will be tasked with kind of following up on that. We will not be sending them next year one of their tax reports, but that will fall under you, but it will be required just because anything that is over $600. I don't think that many of you were planning on doing that, but there were a handful that were. So we just want to be super specific that we want to see copies of those 1099s for anyone that you gave more than $600 to. Kind of the last 2 categories, I said it's miscellaneous because there was a lot in these 2 categories, in this category, but it was kind of, it doesn't really fall anywhere. So this might be subscriptions or dues and membership. For those of you who did include a portion of your membership or a portion to a different agency, we have approved that this time. But please know that moving forward for capacity building purposes, there might be some other opportunities coming up for you. But so this would be, again, receipts, consulting contracts, so maybe professional fees. A lot of you said, well, you know, we're going to bring on a consultant to help us with legal services, or to help us with IT, or to help us with like fiscal purposes. I think there was 2 of our individuals who said that they needed some help with doing a summer audit. So just make sure that you're including for any of those that might be a subcontract or a consultant of some sort, that you include a copy of that consulting contract and those payment stubs, or those those proof of paid invoices. We also, for the other category, be very specific about what it was used for, as you did in your budget line. Some of you didn't have anything under other, some of you had 3 or 4 lines under other, and you were very specific about what they were for. A lot of them might have been background screening for, you know, the additional personnel for summer camp coverage. So just make sure that you have the written narrative of what that other was, and that you have that proof of payment using the kind of the similar things that we've talked about here. And finally, the last category is administrative. Now, we know that administrative can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. For the purposes of this round of summer funding, we were not super restrictive, and it's unique to each of our investment partners. For some of you, this was, a standard set portion of your operating expenses at your agency. Some of this was a percentage of time for something. For others, it might have been what you were going to hold in reserves just in case you needed it. For some of you, it was very specific to the partner agencies that you were working with because they were the host for all of your events. So we understand that this administrative category is going to be unique to your report. So again, making sure that you just have that written narrative justification, and then whatever evidence goes to support that unique justification. So that might be copies of pay stubs. It might be your standard agency policy of 10%. It might be the agreement that you had with the host school that you were giving your administrative costs to. So whatever that is unique to you, that's what you're going to write about and include that evidence for. Again, if you have any questions about that, or if you're like, oh, I'm not sure, will this qualify? Is this what you're looking for? Reach out to a member of our team. And, I kept saying Jacinta and I, but we also now have Dina. So she's absolutely part of the team as well that you can reach out to.
Holly.
I am just going to make a quick note. It started storming at my house. So I'm glad that we have a co-host on, but just in case, and I don't know, we're all here in Tallahassee, so it might be storming for you as well.
Holly, let me jump in very quickly because there was a question about the 1099. The 1099 is provided to, you need to provide one to any contractors, workers, staff that worked on your or with you on your program, whatever, and they were paid more than $600. You do not have to give 1099s to people that you offered cash assistance. That's different. I just looked that up. Or is it because Kelly's asking that in the chat?
We did check with our legal. There was a particular one project that's doing large sums of cash assistance for one individual family, and in that case, because it exceeds $600, but it has to be if it's cash, not just goods and services. So it would be the same.
Okay, let's triple check that, because I've only been familiar when you are paying them to do something. So if the family is doing like they are working in return, then that is considered income. If it is assistance, let's just double and triple check that, because I don't know that they should have to pay tax on or report. Yeah, let's triple check that. I want to be.
It's really only one project that it really impacts, and we can just talk with them independently. So if you have, and we've already had this conversation with them. So if that's not you, if we haven't already talked to you about it, you're good.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So the last thing that I'll share before talking about how you submit everything, the format and all of that, is this idea of reversion of assets. So this is the exact contract language that each of you received and signed and agreed to, that if at the end of the contract period, you're going through and you have not spent all of your funds in the way that it was obligated, then you will need to return that money to us. And so that can be in the form of a check mailed directly to the Children's Services Council of Leon County at the PO box that's listed in your contract. We will be going through the reports and working through that. So if at the conclusion of your July report, you're thinking like this might be a thing, please call us sooner rather than later so that we can work with you and kind of iron out those details so that everyone is in proper format. And then finally, how we want you to submit this. Our preferred format will be a zip file of scanned and properly labeled receipts and evidence along with your, so along with the final budget worksheet email that will go directly to Jacinta Clay, our administrative services manager, whom you all should have received at least 3 emails from by now. Her email address is on the screen right now, but hopefully you have her in your inbox. So again, kind of labeling everything that you have, scanning that in, and including that as a zip file, or if you're able to put it on multiple pages. That is our preferred format. If you're not sure what a zip file is, you're not sure how to do the scanning, and you need some assistance, by all means, reach out to us. So we understand that all of our investment partners have different access to different programs in terms of computer processing, things like that. So we're here to assist and help, but our preferred format will be a zip file of all your scanned and properly labeled receipts that kind of follows that format that we just gave you, right? So anything that might be HR related, those programs for each of those bullets and each of your line items in your budget worksheet is what we're looking for. I'm going to pause right there before we go into the project closeout report and see if there are additional questions. So there was a question. Sure, Robin, feel free to come on and you can unmute yourself. I was just going to get to the one that you put in the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Yeah, this idea of pay stubs takes me back in time a little bit. And I'm thinking about when we do like an ACH transfer, which we do for one of the contractors, or I just do an electronic check. Like there's no stop. I mean, and I'm not sure I want to send
payment.
you. Huh? Pardon?
Yeah, so like any type of proof of payment. So you doing the ACH, there's usually like a proof of payment that happened.
Okay.
Yeah, so I know I said pay stub, but you're right. I haven't gotten a pay stub in ages, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
Leslie,
thanks.
did you have a question? Oh. Was there another question?
So Holly, why don't you stop sharing and then we can see the screen a little bit better. Perfect.
I thought I saw Leslie come off of mute, but I wasn't sure if that was because she had a question or not. I do see in the chat that says reports that out of our accounting system is okay. If it clearly identifies the individual who received the funds, then yes. But if it just says payroll, 7 people, then no. Like being able to differentiate, and going back to Sika's point that she made earlier of, so for example, if an individual normally is, I'm just going to say 30 hours a week, and then because of the expansion, they're 35 hours a week, being able to write that in for each of the individuals that it's supporting. I hope that's clear. Okay. I'm going to go on to the project closeout report and what's going to be included in that and what we need from you. All right, so according to your contract, once again, what we're looking for is going to be an all program activity write-up. And I put in here including any subcontracts and partners. So if any, a handful of you, most of you did projects where you were just working in collaboration with other programs. But there are a few of our investment partners that actually issue kind of subcontracts, and you serve as a pass-through. If that was you, then we have to make sure that all program activity, not just the work that you're going to do, but also the work that was subcontracted out to your community partners is going to do, gets included in that program activity write-up. You'll also submit your final chart of families served that has those 3 different worksheets for June, July, and August. And if you recall, it kind of all tallies up for you at the end. We are looking for some photography of services in action. And we are looking for a minimum of 3 images from each of our partners. We will be talking a little bit more at our next program or our next training about impact testimonials from at least one of the families/partners. I know some of you are working with partners instead of families. You're working with the partners who serve the families, and that is okay. Looking for at least one impact testimonial. And in next month's training, we're actually going to talk a little bit more about the high quality photos that we're looking for, and a little bit driving into that impact testimonial as you get closer to writing it. And then your unique contract deliverables. If you recall in your attachment 2, it gives you the grid of things that you're going to submit. And then at the bottom of that, the table, it included your unique contract deliverables. I'm going to show a sample on the next page, but I do just want to kind of just say whatever is unique to your program is what you're going to use. So the sample that I'm going to show you is similar to what the majority of you have, but it is not specific to all of you. And I did include a star here that just says, with appropriate release, naming CSC Leon as a recipient with permission to publish. So any images that you turn in, especially if they have young people in them, we will need that release because we will be sharing them out. And please note that just broad public record rules apply when you're writing that impact testimonial. So if you include someone's name, it might be published. So you want to make sure that you have those appropriate permissions. And for the photography, I know I just saw Kelly's comment. So that could be at an open event that you're doing, something that's open to the public. Again, what we're trying to do is show your project in action. Now, I didn't say the photography should be of the families that you serve. It might be. It might be from, for example, we just had the opportunity to go to the Young Engineers like project culmination for their middle school program, for their elementary and middle school program. That was really cool. And all of those individuals that were there were showing their robotic arms, their 3D printed stuff, their aquaculture. And so you can share those. However, it doesn't have to be. It could be staff working at an event. It could be something else, whatever it might be. And so again, it's what you feel comfortable with sharing and that you have permission to share.
Okay, so let me chime in on the photo piece. So can't speak for every organization, but normally when I have been with organizations that have been in service, particularly summer programs, or when my child has participated in summer programs and even school, they normally will send home a form and ask you to either opt out or opt in, whatever it is now. I haven't done it in so long, regarding photography of your kids. That being said, coming from a media background, if you notice, when they show children, they either show the backs of their head, they might just show their hands and what they're doing. They might, blur it out a little bit. So we would like to have some photographic proof of the work that you've done. And so what I'd like you to think about is how you would do that if you were applying for some large grant that wanted that information or had to give that information, or better yet, if you were trying to illustrate or capture what your program is doing for your own advertising, if you will. So I think that there is a way to capture what we're trying to get without it being identifying. If you're having a problem thinking of that, please feel free to contact us and we could maybe help you think about how you could capture an image of what it is that you're doing. So we do understand that some of the kids are minors. I'm not going to assume, but I know that when my children have participated in programs, I did have the option to sign a photo release or some sort of release. So I think that there is a way we can get what we need without compromising the persons that participate in your programs. Remember, we are absolutely wanting to showcase what you've done, specifically with the funding that comes from our citizens in Tallahassee. And we want to be able to tell that story. And one of the best ways to do that is to be able to show that in pictures or photography. So I think that there is a way we can get what we need while not compromising the people who participated in your programs.
Thanks, Sika. And to Robin's question in the chat, yes, we have samples. Robin, I know your program isn't necessarily families, so we might tweak the one that we have to share about partners and things like that, but we absolutely have a release form that we can share. Just feel free to drop me an email and I'll send that sample over for you. So your program activity write-up. These are the 5 sections for your write-up that we want you to include. So the brief, and what you'll see with this is that it follows, not exactly, but almost to your attachment 1 of what you submitted that you would do. So we want a brief description of the funded entity, you, and the program that the CSC Leon was supporting, and any partners if applicable. So brief description. We don't need a whole long drawn out thing about everything that you do. Brief description of the funded entity and the program specifically. If you are an agency that maybe operates 9 different programs, we really want you to hone in just on the program that was funded, not necessarily all of the others. The second thing, or for the second section, a description of the funded services provided and in a chronological order preferred. So in June, we did this, in July, we did this, in August, we did this. And please include how the funds, that should say expended, not expanded, and include how the funds expended, what was or already is available. So again, we're looking for that expansion. Oh no, it is supposed to be expanded. I'm sorry, guys. How the funds expanded what was or is already available. Again, we're looking for that idea of how this was the expansion of something that already existed. The third section will be a description of population served. And we're looking for that comparison to what you originally set out to serve and explain why or why not that they match. Many of you said we're going to target very specific zip codes. And then I heard within like 5 days, people were like, we're already full. We need, like, if we had more money, we could probably like add a whole nother classroom. But in being already full, was it a convenient sample? Did they all come from one zip code? Were you able to hit those targets? So why or why not? Then the fourth section is that brief description of your data collection methods and tools utilized and the results. So that's going to lead into your unique contract deliverables, and then to compare the expected impact with the actual impact. So for example, if you said we're hoping to show 5% gains in, let's just say, math skills, if that was one of the things that you wrote, see what, like, and you did your pre-test, post-test, explain why or why not that they matched. So that's your program activity write-up. Will include each of these 5 sections, and you can put this in a Word document, and you'll be able to attach it and upload it right directly into the system. So those sample unique contract deliverables, these are just one sample. So this might look familiar to many of you, especially if you were doing STEM summer programs or some type of summer learning type of activity. This might have been your unique contract deliverables. So what were those learning gains? And the reason why I pull this specifically out is because what we will ask for is the actual survey tools themselves, but they can be de-aggregated. So we don't necessarily need from you in this report the Susie Smith performed this way on her pre-survey and then her post-survey. We don't need that, but being able to kind of aggregate it all together and kind of track through down to that zip code level. And the reason why is because in your contract, there's a provision that talks about you maintaining your client data, documenting the client eligibility. You don't have to turn that into us. However, if for whatever reason we needed to have access to it, then we would need it. Again, you can protect names, but as long as you are keeping that and maintaining that data at your level, then we are good. In your report, you can just give us the kind of the aggregate, right? 13 youth, here's their outcomes, etc. So if you have any questions about how to capture that, please let us know. And there will be an online portal to submit this. I will say for the images, and I know we just talked a little bit about those, I'm only going to make a preferred format request for that, is that you just zip a file together with all of your images as JPEGs or PNGs, as opposed to like copying and pasting into a Word document. That doesn't usually transfer over as high resolution. If you're not sure how to zip files together, you want some assistance, please reach out to myself or Jacinta and we will help you do that. And with that, I'm going to stop the share and ask if there are any questions. All right, if there's no questions, then we definitely look forward. We will follow up not only at the conclusion of tomorrow's session, we will follow up with all of our investment partners with a copy of these slides, and then you will be receiving your updated worksheets and your July portal uplink. And then in August, you'll receive the final report uplink. If you have a request for some assistance related to the photography release, the testimonial release, again, especially with that testimonial when we get to it, and we'll talk more about that at our August training. Definitely for the testimonial, we want to have a release, because the idea there is to show direct impact, whether it's with your partner or a family or a client that you're serving. And this is someone that would be willing to kind of share their story a little bit. It doesn't have to be everyone that you serve, but helping to identify the impact of your program and the reach of your program, and we'll be able to create a series from that.
And again,
I'll turn it over to
remember, well, no, I was just going to add, and again, remember, testimonials are really powerful, but it doesn't mean you have to use the person's real name. It doesn't mean you have to use first and last name. You can use first name, last initial, last name. You could change the name, and we can note that the name has been changed to protect the client. So there are all kinds of ways that we can help to ensure that your participants and your clients' confidentiality is protected, but we need those testimonials so that we can show the impact of this funding, the programs that you run, and the people that you serve as we move into this next year, and look at priority funding. And even as we look at funding for the summer, if you've been following us, you know we are in the trim process. We've got the proposed trim, or the draft budget and proposed trim millage rate approved. That will be going into hearings, moving into finality so that we can start again October 1st. So we all are partners in this. This isn't just us being dictatorial, but we definitely need your help so that we can show our constituents the impact of them making the decision to have this extra ad valorem tax revenue to go to help some of our more vulnerable populations. The last thing I'll say, and I'm sure everyone on here has already registered, but we do have our provider forum on Thursday. Last I checked, we had 3 spaces left, and they may be full now. Okay.
You're full.
So hopefully you registered. We are going to feed you, and we look forward to having you there so we can talk a little more about our needs assessment, more about where it looks like the council will land when it comes to priority funding, more about what we see innovation funding as being, And then lastly, about summer funding for next year so that you are armed and ready and prepared whenever an RFP or an ITN comes out and it speaks to what your organization does to help improve the lives of our children, youth, and families here in Leon County. So just want to thank you guys again. Thank you, Holly, for hanging in. Holly is not feeling well. So whatever is going around, people wash your hands and use antibacterial, because between the new strand of COVID and the flu, which I had, and a cold, which is going around, and all of this stuff, and now we got monkeypox or whatever the heck that is. This is not the time for us to be getting sick as school is starting. So yeah, stop the spread, use your sanitizer. So with that, I'm done.
Thank you, everyone. Again, we appreciate you being here. And yes, I definitely am walking around with my hand sanitizer. I've been having a mask and I'm quarantining in my house currently. So I likely won't see everyone on Thursday since I'm still under the weather. But I hope that it's a fantastic event. If you did not get registered and you would like to be added to our waiting list, feel free to email me directly. And with that,